read at all, books or magazines or even articles online, there are themes that emerge in our society where people start talking about them over and over again. One of the themes that is common in our society right now is this one. People are talking a lot about empathy, and it's not just Christians who are talking about empathy. Instead, you can find articles about empathy from scientists and education experts and political activists and business leaders, coaches, counselors, managers, leaders. Even I'm talking about it. So, people are talking about the subject of empathy so much. So before we talk about why they're talking about so much, let's talk about what it is. So empathy has two real pieces to it. First off, it's the ability to recognize emotions in others. So you can see emotions in other people. And then, more importantly, you go beyond that. Empathy is really about being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes. It's really about being able to feel what they feel, not just understanding that they feel it. So when they talk about empathy in the literature, they talk about two different types of it. There's cognitive empathy, which is here. Oh, I know that they're feeling sad right now. So some of you know people in your life right now who are feeling very sad. You know that. But there's a step beyond that, and the empathy that is really powerful that people are talking about is that second one. It's you feel a little of their sadness. It's not just here. It's here. It's not just in your head. It's in your heart, and this is what people are talking about so much. Jesus was a master at this. Jesus was, in my opinion, the most empathetic person that the world has ever seen. If you read the stories of Jesus, you will see his empathy expressed through his behavior constantly. One time, he and his disciples were walking along. They came to this little community, and there was a funeral procession, and a widow was burying her son, and everyone was coming out. And when he saw the situation, he saw what was going on. The widow had lost her husband. She has no income now because now her son's dead too. What's going to happen? The pain he felt in his heart was so overwhelming, he said, not today. He walked up, said to the boy, come back to life, brought him back to life. Later, when his friend Lazarus died, he went to be with Mary and Martha, Lazarus' sisters, and he loved them, and they were in so much pain, it says Jesus wept, and he said, not today. Lazarus, come on out. Jesus was the guy you wanted to invite to every funeral you had, because his heart was so huge. When he saw you in pain, he wanted to heal that pain. By the way, Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. You want to know what our Father in heaven is like? Do you understand now a little more about why it says that God is near to the brokenhearted? If your heart is broken, this God of tremendous empathy is right next to you. With his heart breaking as yours breaks. So why is empathy being talked about in non-religious circles so much? Oh, by the way, empathy is seeing with the eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and then that last one, feeling with the heart of another. So why is this such a popular subject right now? Well, because we know that empathy does incredible things. It's the cornerstone of good relationships. If you want to have a great relationship, a great friendship, there has to be empathy. It leads to happiness, deepens our friendships, honors the other people around us, shortens conflict. Would any of you like to fight less with the people around you? Empathy, it's a superpower. And most importantly, it can actually bring healing into other people's lives. This is part of what empathy can do. Now, there's a problem with this subject of empathy. The problem is this. University of Michigan did a study recently on empathy levels. We can track how people respond, whether they respond with empathy or not. And since 1980, guess which way empathy levels in America are going? We are becoming a less empathetic society. And in the last 10 years, they've seen a precipitous drop in empathy levels in our society. I can't imagine what's causing us to become more self-absorbed than ever. Selfie. And psychologists are talking about the rise of narcissism. And this narcissism is basically, it's all about me, people. Don't you get that? You know any narcissists in your life where it is all about them all the time? It's always about them. They estimate now that 10% of the population is showing narcissistic tendencies. 1/10 of our population, that blew me away. So I told that to a friend, and they're like, that seems low. I guess it depends on who you hang out with. But man, we're going the wrong way with this one. Now that's the bad news. The good news is it's a skill. You can learn how to be more empathetic in your relationships. And if you gain empathy, you gain the ability to change people's lives. You can change your relationships, change your friendships, change your family with empathy. So, here's what we're talking about as we finish our series on relationships today. How can we use empathy to change lives? Because that's what this does. So I want to ask you to grab your notes, grab a pen. There'll be some things you can fill in as we go through this today. And of course, welcome to those who are watching on YouTube. Linked in the notes below, in the comments below, are the notes, so you can download those and follow along as we go through this. Here are if you've heard me teach on empathy before, and I have, there's a little formula that I want you just to kind of lock away in your mind. We'll go through it today, but I want you to remember this going forward. It's the LUV formula. So some of you heard me teach about this before. LUV. That's all you need to remember. It stands for listen, understand, and validate. And that's what I've taught it before. I'm teaching it again. Let's talk about what that means. Number one, first thing it means is you have to learn to listen. The first part of empathy is learning to listen. Have you ever been in a situation where you tried to talk to somebody about something important and they didn't listen to you? You did not feel listened to. About a year and a half ago, when my life was blowing up, I went to see a counselor. I'd been to see a counselor in 2009, and it was really helpful. Learned a lot about myself, so I was hoping for the same experience. So I went to see this counselor at the recommendation of another person and started out like a normal session, hey, tell me why you're here, what's going on? And so I started talking, interrupted me, which I thought was a little strange, and started talking about some stuff in his life. And eventually got back and continued, interrupted me again. Don't know how many times he interrupted me. Do know that he spent more time talking about his life and his career than we did talking about why I was there. And about, 2/3 of the way through, I thought, I'm counseling him. What in the world is going on here? And I'm paying him a couple $100 to counsel him. This is craziness. Needless to say, never went back, didn't feel listened to. Didn't feel listened to. And all of you have had that experience. All of you have been in situations where you've been something really important, you want to talk to somebody, and you didn't feel like they listened. And it hurts terribly. The Bible actually kind of almost pleads with us. Listen to if you're a pastor, you teach on this, you always quote the same verse. This verse is always talked about. Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters, you must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. But the first part of it is almost like a plea to the Christians saying, listen, I want you to understand this. I want you to understand. It's important that you understand this. Here's what I want for you. Here's what Christianity is supposed to be defined by. We don't talk very much, but boy, we're good listeners. We are quick to listen. Are you quick to listen? Are you quicker to listen or quicker to talk? If I were to ask you, how good are you at this quick listening skill on a scale of 1 to 10, and you were really, really honest, what number would you give yourself? I think part of the problem with this is that most of us think we're better at this whole thing than we actually are. And I really want you to think about that as we go through this today. Maybe you're not as good at this subject as you think you are. Because one woman, Rebecca Shafir, is a communication expert. In her research, she said that what she discovers, the average person can remember only 25% of what someone just said to him within a few minutes of the conversation ending. We don't listen very well. We don't listen very well. And she pointed out, hey, it's not, how many of you you had classes on reading and writing and speaking? When did you ever have a class on listening? We just weren't taught. It's just kind of assumed that you'll know how to do it. But there's more to it than just closing your mouth. So here are some things that it takes to actually be a good listener. First, obviously, shut out distractions. You're going to be a good listener. Listen to people when they're in pain. You want to bring that healing power in their life. You've got to shut off your distractions. And shut them out and shut them off is probably better, because this is killing us. This is so commonly repeated. How many times you've been in a conversation with someone, maybe even talking to them about something important, and they're like, I'm listening, right? You ever heard that? Like, just put it down. It's okay. You don't need it all the time. It used to be, before the smartphone, it used to be turn off the TV, or at least mute it. But now you've got so many things to distract you. You got the TV, and you got your smartphone, you got video games. So many things that people can turn their attention to away from the person that's trying to talk to them. You turn off the distractions. And again, the first two are kind of does. Maintain good eye contact. Obviously, you can't do that if you're looking at your smartphone. You got to look at them. And the reason why this is so important to look at the person talking to you is because body language will tell you so much more than words many, many times. Like this picture right here. Body language is communicating something, not just from her, from him too. You learn a lot by looking at the person, because I don't care what the words are, you get what her body language is, right? She is done. But he's done too. If I were putting words above his head in a little bubble, it'd be like, oh great, here we go again. Here we go again, there she is, she's just not gonna talk to me now. Because his body language is communicating something too, and you can't catch that if you're not looking. Look at the person. All right, so those aren't too profound. Now let's go into the harder two parts of listening. Shut off your mind. It's easier to shut off your smartphone than it is to shut off your mind. But this is important if you're going to become a good listener. At this point, I really should hand the clicker over to somebody else, because I am so bad at this one. Shutting off your mind, it means stopping the monologue that's running through your head as the other person is talking. It means not anticipating the point they're about to make. I'm so bad at that one. It means not trying to think ahead to what you're about to say. Anyone else struggle with this? I mean, these are all anti-listening skills, and they're so damaging, because here's what happens in every difficult conversation. When someone's in pain and they want you to listen to them, all the pain that's coming out of their mouth is being filtered through their entire life experiences. You have to understand this. You and I, we are the sum of our life experiences. You are where you are today in part because of what you've experienced to this point in your life. So that's how you can have two people experience the exact same thing and respond totally different ways to it. One can be crushed, one may not be. Well, they've had different life experiences. So that's what makes this so challenging, is when you're sitting there listening to someone and they're crying about something that you have never experienced before, but it's been a part of their life and it's crushing them, and you're like, this is dumb. This is so dumb. I can't believe they feel this way. I can't believe I've got to listen to this. And it's because we're the sum of our life experiences. And so what you're trying to do, one of the things that keeps us from really listening well is we filter everything through our own filter. So I hear your words and I put it through my filter, and I make assumptions about you. That's not real listening. Real listening is trying to put it through their filter. So here's the words. I wonder what their experiences are that have brought them to this point so that this is so overwhelming to them. Do you hear how different that is? That is completely different listening. You've got to shut your mind off if you're going to actually be able to do that. You're going to make them your focus. And you've got to learn how to listen with the goal of understanding what they're saying, not replying. This is so important that I actually have it as a whole second point, but it's a part of listening, so I put it here first. Jesus talked about this specifically. He said this: if you pay close attention to what you hear, boy, isn't that the sentence of listening? Pay a close attention to what you're hearing. And then he said, the closer you listen, the more understanding you will be given. They're connected. So here's what I want you to know, and I don't want to belabor this one because I really want to get to the next two. You will, if you want to develop this skill of empathy and really change people's lives, you've got to become a better listener. So are any of those areas struggles for you? Do you try and talk with distractions? Are you good at maintaining eye contact? How good are you at shutting off your mind? And do you listen with the goal of understanding or the goal of replying? Now, let's get into the harder things, because these are going to get progressively harder. Harder than listening is this one. Trying to actually understand before trying to be understood. Now, this is hard. We are selfish by nature, and so we want what we want from birth. And I want in every conflict for you to understand me, and you in every situation where you're in pain, you want me to understand you. Something's got to give. This is really hard. And what I've talked about, when I've talked about empathy before, with this one I've said, it's like you're trying to enter into the pain of the other person. So they have a filter that's causing them to react the way that they're reacting to circumstances that you may never react to that way, but it's because you haven't lived through the same things they lived through. And so you've got to try and understand them and enter into their pain. So in 25 plus years of being a senior pastor, there were so many times where I was asked to sit in on conflict situations. Conflict between a husband and wife was a very common thing, between parent and child, between friends, between coworkers. I had lots of conflict experience. And one time I was sitting, one of the most painful things I have ever witnessed in my life was between a mom and a daughter. The daughter had been deeply hurt by the mom. And so she had written up what she wanted to say to her mom. And the mom and the daughter were there, and the daughter, everything was communicated to the mom. Here's what my pain is. When the daughter was done, one of the strangest things I have ever witnessed, the mom stared at the daughter with a blank expression on her face as if the daughter had just read her grocery list from Aldi's, rather than this horrific pain that she was in because of what her mom had chosen to do. And then the mom said nothing for 5 minutes. I had my phone on my desk. I tracked it. Can you imagine that? You're in tremendous pain with this person that you love. You take the vulnerable risk of saying, here's how much pain I'm in. Let me risk talking to you about it, risking vulnerability. And the reaction isn't empathy. It isn't anything. It is just a blank look on your face and silence for 5 minutes. I finally had to ask the mom to leave because I could see the body of the daughter begin to shake in pain. And the mom walked out and the girl fell to pieces. I don't know how many more difficult and painful words there are in the English language than saying to someone you love, you don't understand. You don't understand. I don't know how many more difficult and painful words there are in the English language than that. And many of you have said those words to people you loved. You've said, Dad, you don't understand. You've said, husband, you don't understand. Wife, you don't understand. Mom, you don't understand. Now, it's easy for us to remember stories about times when this was done to us, but again, if you listen to me teach, you know that one of the things that I constantly try and do is get this back off of us and onto others. When was the last time someone said that to you? When was the last time someone said to you, Brian, you don't understand what I'm saying? When was the last time they said it to you? This is such a biblical value. The Bible talks about loving your neighbor as yourself. That means in every conversation where I'm in pain, I want you to understand. So what should I give to other people? The same thing I want. That's what love is. The Bible talks about it this way. It says, don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. So I'm supposed to, in those situations where I see someone in pain, take an interest in what's going on inside of them. So how do you do it? On your notes, here's the best tool I've come across. It's first off, you're trying to practice empathetic listening, which is listening for what's driving this feeling inside of them. What's created so much pain inside of this person? That's empathetic listening. So the way you do this is using that tool that's on your notes and it's up here on the screen. You rephrase the sentence in your own words and you ask if you've understood it correctly. So you say when they're done talking, so what I hear you saying is this. And you say that. So what I hear you saying is this. That's empathetic listening. You're rephrasing it back to them and you'll get one of two reactions from that sentence. You'll get, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And by the way, when you get the yeah, that's it. In that moment, what's beginning to happen is that, they've risked vulnerability with their heart with you. They're talking to you about something extremely painful. And what happens is you've made it safe for them to talk to you. And a little bit of that pain that's in their heart right now that they're expressing to you starts to get healing in that moment of the yes. You change people's lives when you get to that point where you're able to say, okay, so what I hear you saying is this. Am I understanding that correctly? Yes. Now, sometimes, many times, they'll say, no, that's not what I meant at all. That's not what I meant at all. Okay. Then you go, well, please try again. Help me understand this. I really want to understand what you're saying. Now, here's the caution about this. This can be very mechanical. When you're first learning it, if it just comes across like a programmed response, this is going to devastate the other person. It cannot be mechanical. It cannot be, okay, I was listening to Brian, he said to do this, so help me understand it. Okay, I got it. Help me understand. It cannot come across that way. It has to be that you genuinely care about the other person, or it's going to devastate them. So, because understanding brings so much healing. One time, and we all do this wrong, all of us. I've done it wrong so many times. One time, I was in a lot of pain. And I was sat down to talk to a friend about it, and the friend did what we so often do. They tried to fix it, tried to explain it away. It's good news. It's really this. It's this and this. That doesn't help. That hurt a lot more until finally I literally just had to say, listen, I don't feel like you're trying to understand how that news impacted me. And the moment I said that, they were like, oh, I bet it made you feel this way. I bet this is what it did inside of you. Immediate turn, and sometimes you just have to say that. And immediately, it was like this weight on my shoulders started to come off. That's what you do. That's what you do when you understand and communicate understanding in the middle of people's pain. So, how good are you at communicating understanding? When was the last time somebody said to you, I don't feel like you get it? I don't feel like you understand what I'm saying. You want to use empathy to change people's lives? Learn to listen. Try to understand before trying to be understood. And then the most important of them all, now, validate their feelings. And this is hard for a whole lot of different reasons. The moment I get it, I see that you're in pain, and I enter in, I'm like, okay, tell me what's going on. What? Are you okay? And they start telling me about their pain, and I do my best to try and understand why they're feeling what they're feeling. I get it. Now, the moment I get it, I have two options. So I say, is this what you're feeling? Yes, that's what I'm feeling. In that moment, I have two options. I can validate their pain, or I can invalidate their pain. Look at this slide, because these are some of the most common invalidating remarks in America today. Well, you shouldn't be mad about that. Just get over it. Don't be so sensitive. Nothing to be upset about. You should feel lucky. Or at least, or it's really not that bad. Stop whining. It doesn't bother me. Why should it bother you? I could put so many things up here. Now, many of you have heard these things spoken to you. Again, I want to ask, has there ever been a time when you said anything remotely close to these to someone else? Because if there has, I mean, especially parents when your kids were young, parents of young children, or when your kids were young, and they're crying for the 50th time because they couldn't have a Twinkie in Piggly Wiggly or whatever crazy thing they cry about, okay, right? A lot of these things came flying out of our mouths. Like, enough. Hard to keep going. But here's what you need to understand about emotional invalidation. Psychological invalidation is one of the most lethal forms of emotional abuse. It kills confidence, creativity, and individuality. You want to destroy a human being, tell them that what they feel is stupid or wrong, and you will destroy that person. It's one of the most lethal forms of emotional abuse that you can ever give to another human being. You want to destroy them? Invalidate their emotions. It's just toxic to people. So before we get into what validation is like, I really want to dig a little further in this. 4 things we gotta stop doing. First, don't ever judge another person's emotions. Don't judge them. You're judging them when you label them. When you say, man, that's so stupid they feel that way. Isn't that stupid? That's just stupid. You've just judged their emotional reaction. That is so damaging to an individual. Because here's what I want you to know. If you had lived the life they've lived, if you had walked in their shoes to this point, you'd feel it too. Now somebody like, I'd never feel that. That is so arrogant and naive of you to even think that you understand one fraction of what they've actually experienced to this point in life. It is stunning arrogance. And you might as well just go by a teacher and said, I'm a narcissist. If that's what you want to do, run around judging people's emotional reactions, it is so damaging. Stop doing it. You have no idea what they've lived through. You have no idea what they've experienced at this point in their life. If you judge them, you damage them. It is not okay to do this. Don't try and fix their emotions. Oh boy. I've taught on this before, like I said. My favorite fixing story is from one of my best friends. He was so bad at this. And so I had talked to him multiple times about this LUV, 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 listen, understand, validate, listen, understand, validate. And so one day he came into my office, he sat down in my chair, he's like, ugh. He said, last night, I was in bed with my wife, we were falling asleep, and she started talking about something really painful in her life, and he said, I thought, LUV, I got LUV her. And so I started listening and understanding, and she's talking about her pain, and I said, that must have really hurt you. And he said, she rolled a little closer to me, and she kept talking. And so he said, I listened and listened, and then I did it again. I LUV'd her, and I said, that must have really hurt. And he said, she rolled a little closer. And she kept talking. And she talked about the pain again, and he said, and then I said, well, here's how you fix it. All you need to do is da, da, da. And he said, she rolled away and shut down, and she was done. And I'm like, you were doing so good, you did it right. And he said, yes, but when do you just get to tell him what to do? Oh boy, my poor friend. Yeah, you don't, okay? Just in case you were wondering what the answer to that question is, you don't. Can you and I, can we all please let go of the ridiculous idea that you and I can fix another human being? You can't fix yourself. You cannot fix people. And if you make it your goal to fix the broken people around you, or fix what's going on in their pain, you are going to screw them up, and you're going to live one frustrated life. People change because of the internal drive and desire to change, not because of you. So what they need when they're in pain is not your pithy little, here's 3 steps on how to solve this problem. They need to know that you're with them in the pain. Stop trying to fix it. Don't try and fix people's emotions. Third, don't suppress their emotions. Don't suppress their emotions. I was raised in a home where emotional expression was forbidden. If I cheered too loud during a Packer game, my dad would literally tell me to shut up. I was about 11 years old, one of the most, one of the key moments of my life. 11 years old, we had a dog, a German Shepherd named King, and he was in a dog house pretty far away from the house. I don't know why we kept him so far back by the tree line, but we did. We had a big long chain. One night it was dark, I went out to feed King. There was no light out by him, but the moment I came out of the garage, I could hear King in the darkness howling in pain. It's my dog. I'm terrified. I have no idea what's happening. Of course, I'm thinking he's being attacked, something's happened, and I run inside. I'm like, Dad, something's wrong with King. Come on out, please. And Dad comes out, and the first thing Dad does is he grabs me and he says, don't you ever react like that again. And then he goes down, and King had gotten his paw tangled in the chain, and as he was pulling, of course, it was hurting him. And that's the that's my emotions were not ever allowed. They were never okay. You could not have it, and many of you were raised in homes like that, where you could not have emotions. Your emotions were suppressed or denied, and you learned it. And it is tremendous, it does tremendous damage to an individual to tell him, stop crying. You shouldn't feel that way. Why don't you go cry alone in your room? All of those things are emotionally suppressing comments, and they damage the individual. Have you ever suppressed someone's emotions? The last one's confusing, but it's really important. Don't try and cheer them up. When they're in pain, it's not your goal to cheer them up. It's your goal to be with them in the pain. We try and cheer them up because we feel bad that they're feeling bad, right? So we don't want to feel bad anymore, so if we can cheer them up, then they'll feel better and we'll feel better. We're making it about us. The Bible actually directly addresses this one. Singing light songs to the heavy-hearted is like pouring salt in their wounds. Do you hear what he's saying? They're heavy-hearted, and you're like, cheer up. And what you're doing is they have a wound, and you just poured salt in it. Do you hear? This is what emotional invalidation does to people. It takes their pain and makes it worse. They don't need you to cheer them up. They need you to be there with them in the pain. That's what they need. So that's what emotional invalidation is. It is toxic and destructive. So what does it mean to actually validate somebody? Validation isn't agreeing with their emotional experience. It's reassuring them that it's okay. It's okay for them to feel the way they do. That's what validation is. You're listening to them, trying to understand how their filter in life has brought them to the point where this is how they feel and why they're reacting in this circumstance. And you're saying, you know what? Based on what you've lived through, it is totally normal that you would react the way you do. That's validation. This is what validation sounds like. Man, that must have hurt like crazy. I am so sorry. That's a lot to deal with. It must have felt overwhelming. It sounds so discouraging. It must have really hurt. You have the right to feel that way. This must be difficult for you to go through. I'm so sorry you've had to go through something like this. These are all validating comments. And when somebody reaches out and makes this bid for connection to you, and you listen and you understand and you validate them, what you do is you communicate, I accept you as you are. In the middle of pain, that is one of the most important messages. It helps them know they're on the right track, that they're not crazy. It builds the relationship, shows the other person they're important, helps them persevere, and makes them feel normal. Because so many times when you're in pain, you don't feel normal. You feel screwed up, broken, and crazy. And validation helps solve all of those things. There's an amazing example of this in the Bible. Before, if you know anything about the kings of Israel, if I asked you to name the kings of Israel, that'd be hard for many to do, but you probably could come up with two. Solomon and David. So David was the second king of the nation of Israel. So David and Goliath, that guy. So before he was the king, he had a band of men that followed him. He'd already been anointed king, but there was a king on the throne, and so he was running from the current king. And one time while he was out on the run, he and his men were staying in this place, and there was a wealthy farmer nearby. And the farmer had a lot of sheep, and so David and his men protected this man's flocks. Protected them from wild animals, protected them from thieves. At the time when they came to shear the sheep, this was common custom. David sent some of his men to this guy and said, hey, we took care of your sheep and your your possessions, and the entire time, nothing bad happened, we didn't do anything. So there was an expectation that they would be kind of paid for this. Well, the guy, the wealthy farmer, insulted them and sent them away. When they got back to David, David was kind of a young hothead. When they came back and told him what the wealthy farmer said, David said, all of you get your swords on right now. There will not be one survivor of this household by the end of the day. He was ticked. So they get their swords on, they start going. Well, meanwhile, one of the servants who had watched what this wealthy farmer had done ran to find the farmer's wife. Her name was Abigail. And said, oh my goodness, Abigail, you cannot believe what he just did. By the way, his name was Nabal, which literally meant fool. Who names their child fool? This is my son, Fool. They may be fools. You don't name them that, all right? Give him a better name. But she was married to Fool. So she quickly had her servant load up these donkeys and animals with lots of provisions, went to find David because she put herself in his shoes. Oh my goodness, she said, I can't imagine how insulted he feels. I can't imagine how angry he is. He's probably on his way right now. She was right. She meets him, finds him, falls in front of him, and part of what she says is, I accept all blame in this matter, my lord. Please listen to what I have to say. I know Nabal is a wicked and ill-tempered man. Please don't pay any attention to him. He is a fool, just as his name suggests. But I never even saw the young men you sent. And she goes on from there, and what she's doing is saying, you have every right to feel insulted by what he did. He is this way. Please accept this as a gift, and please forgive it. And her listening, understanding, and validating drained all the pain out of David's heart. He's like, oh. It's like, you guys can take your swords off. And he praised her for her saving him from shedding all this blood. That's the power that you have with empathy. You can drain the pain out of a human being's heart if you can enter into that pain. And that's what she did. Now, this one's hard because we get confused about validation. We think, well, if I validate them, they're going to think I'm agreeing with them. If I say, oh, that must have really hurt, then they're going to think, well, I think that it should have hurt, when I don't think it should have hurt at all. Or they'll think, if I validate them, they're just going to get stuck complaining about this problem because there are complainers in this world, right? So if I say, oh no, that must have really hurt, now every time I see them, they're going to come back. And there are people like that. There are severely broken people, and so they kind of make it scary for all of us, just like, I can't validate anybody because then everybody will do this. No, they won't. And they need this. Or if I validate them, their emotions will escalate, they'll get out of control. Or I won't be heard. This was a big one. Because I've got to be heard first, then they can hear me, then I'll hear them. And here's what you need to understand about validation. Validation is none of those things. Validation is saying, in the life experiences you've had to this point, man, your reactions are completely normal and understandable. I get it. If I would have walked down your path to this point, how you're feeling is exactly how I would have feeling. I'm so sorry that you're feeling it today. And in that moment, you bring unbelievable healing to that human being. Because not only do they know that you get it, they feel normal again. And people in overwhelming pain don't feel very normal. That's what you can do. Now, I want to show you something. When I've taught on empathy before, years ago I saw this video from an author named Brene Brown. We're going to have to switch over the format for what we're using here to show you this video. It is one of my favorite video clips of all time. So if those of you who've seen it before, it's a great reminder. For those of you who've never seen it, take a look at Brene Brown talking about empathy.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. I have it, yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So you get it? Empathy is feeling with people. It's going to keep doing it. You're going to have to stop it. It's feeling with people, and some of those lines in there. Listen to this. Rarely can a response make something better. That's what my friend needs to hear. Rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is human connection. You feel what I feel, and I know that you get it, and that's when you heal me. So, is that what you give to the people in your life? Is this what you give them? When somebody is vulnerable and expressing their pain and you see it, are you the goat offering a sandwich? Or are you climbing down into the hole with them and being with them in their pain? One will change them and heal them, and one will not. Let me have you bow your heads as we finish today. Now, some of you, this is a real difficult subject because you've been hurt a lot by this, and there are a lot of people in your life who've done it wrong for you. Again, we can make our focus on what people have done to us, and I'm not trying to downplay that, but I really want you to think about how are you doing at offering this to other people. If someone's in pain, is this what they experience with you? Would people say about you, boy, they're such a great listener? Or would they say, I really feel so understood by that person? Or, I feel better after talking to them about my pain. Is that what people would say about you? If not, which of those things do you need to start addressing today? Pick just one and go after it. And for all of us, if you're exploring your faith here, we have a God who totally gets it. He has felt our pain at every painful juncture in our life, and he has been with us, and he loves us, and not from a distance. He came into this world and died on a cross for all of us, so he could be with us, experience everything we have ever experienced without sinning, and then offer all of us an unbelievable gift for free. If we will receive it, Jesus Christ paid on the cross for what we've done that's wrong so that we could be completely forgiven. If you want this gift, if you want a God of empathy to move inside your heart, to take up residence inside you, you can have him. You can say something like this in your heart to him. Say, Jesus, I'm turning to you today. I believe you died on that cross for me. So I'm asking you to forgive me today. I don't want you in a distant relationship. I want to be close to you. So come and make your home inside of me. In Jesus' name, amen. So next time we get together, we will be talking, we're going to start a little short Christmas series. It will be one, so and then Christmas Eve services like I already announced. So thanks so much for coming. Hope to see you again next time.